All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into an ancient festival that is just packed with symbolism you would never expect. We're talking about Sukkot, also known as the Feast of Tabernacles. So let's get right into it.
So let me start with this. What if I told you Thanksgiving's roots might actually go back like 3,000 years? It's a pretty wild thought, right? Well, the source material for this explainer makes a compelling case that the American Thanksgiving tradition, a harvest festival, is basically a modern echo of Sukkot, brought over by settlers who knew their Bible. It's this really surprising link between a holiday we all know and an ancient command.
Okay, so to really understand what Sukkot is all about, you kind of have to zoom out and look at the bigger picture first. See, according to the source, the 7 biblical feasts, they aren't just random holidays. They actually form a kind of prophetic calendar, and it's split into 2 main groups that tell one massive story. And here it is. You've got the spring feasts on one side and the fall feasts on the other. The argument from the source is that the spring feasts, Passover, Pentecost, they were perfectly fulfilled by the events of Christ's first coming. And that detail is absolutely crucial because it sets up the fall feasts, including Sukkot, as these prophetic rehearsals for things that are still to come, all leading up to what it calls the final harvest.
All right, so with that bigger framework in mind, let's zoom in on our main event, Sukkot. It's also called the Feast of Booths, or the Feast of Tabernacles, and it is the 7th and final festival of the year. It's basically the grand finale, this huge celebration of the completed harvest.
Now, the absolute central symbol of this whole festival is something called a sukkah. It's a temporary, kind of fragile little dwelling. You build it, you eat in it, some people even sleep in it for the whole week. But here's where the source Casitas makes this really powerful connection. This physical sukkah is a metaphor for our own bodies, these temporary little tabernacles for our spirits.
And check this out. This quote from 2 Corinthians just perfectly illustrates that idea. The Apostle Paul uses the exact same imagery of the sukkah, calling it this earthly house, to contrast our temporary physical life with the promise of a permanent eternal one. It completely reframes the whole idea from just being about a simple hut to this profound spiritual truth.
Okay, so beyond the sukkah itself, there's this incredible pattern that's just woven deep into the fabric of this festival. It's a number that pops up again and again and again, 7. And in biblical symbolism, 7 almost always represents divine completion, perfection. And as the source points out, its presence in Sukkot is it's everywhere. I mean, just look at this. It's the 7th feast, held in the 7th month, and it's celebrated for, you guessed it, 7 days. But it gets even deeper. According to the source, even the sacrifices were symbolic. Over the week, they would offer 70 bulls, which was said to represent the 70 nations of the world known at that time. It was like a prayer for the harvest of all humanity. Seriously, every single detail is pointing toward this idea of a divine and complete conclusion.
But the absolute, undisputed high point of the ancient Sukkot celebration was this event called the water libation ceremony. And this wasn't just some boring ritual. It was considered the most joyous, exciting spectacle of the entire year. And as you're about to see, the source argues it is just filled with some jaw-dropping prophetic parallels.
I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. Just listen to this quote from the ancient sages of Israel. Whoever has never seen the celebrations of the festival of water libation has never experienced true joy in his life. Wow, that is not a casual statement. They're basically saying this ceremony was the very definition of pure joy. It really gives you a sense of the incredible energy and emotion that must have filled Jerusalem during this festival.
So the ceremony itself had 2 main parts, and it's really important to get both of them. First, there was this massive illumination, where 4 gigantic lampstands would light up the entire city. And second, there was this really unique pouring ritual at the altar that involved both water and blood. And the source argues that it's within these 2 actions that's where we find the most profound prophetic connections.
Okay, get ready for this, because here is the first really stunning connection that the source presents. So the wicks for those 4 giant lamps, they weren't made from just any old cloth. They were made from the old, worn-out garments of the priests. Okay, now let's fast forward to the crucifixion. The source points out that the Roman soldiers took Christ's garment and they tore it into 4 pieces. A priestly garment divided into 4, symbolically becoming a source of light for the 4 corners of the world. The parallel it's pretty striking.
And if you thought that was something, here's the second parallel. And honestly, this one's even more direct. So during the ceremony, the priest would pour water from the pool of Siloam and blood from a sacrifice onto the temple altar. and the funnels for the drainage were specifically engineered so that these two liquids, the water and the blood, would merge and flow out together at the exact same time. Now, think about the gospel account of the crucifixion. When the Roman soldier pierces Christ's side, what does it say? Blood and water gushed out. The source argues this ancient ceremony was a literal physical dress rehearsal for that exact moment on the cross.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but why does any of this matter today? Well, the source is really clear on this. These aren't just historical fun facts or clever coincidences. They're presented as intentional prophetic rehearsals, designed from the beginning to teach us something vital about what's to come.
Okay, this next part is absolutely fascinating. During that water ceremony, the priests would actually read from the prophet Isaiah, and they'd read this very verse. But here's the kicker. The Hebrew word for salvation is Yeshua, which is the Hebrew name for Jesus. So just think about it. As they were celebrating drawing water, they were literally chanting, maybe without even realizing it, about drawing life from the wells of Yeshua.
So, to kind of wrap this all up, this theological view frames Sukkot as one big dress rehearsal. It's seen as a foreshadowing of drawing spiritual living water. It also points to a future time described in the book of Zechariah when all the nations will actually come to Jerusalem to celebrate this very feast. And ultimately, it's all seen as a picture of that great final celebration described in the book of Revelation, the marriage supper of the Lamb.
So, we'll end with the central question that this whole explainer really leaves us with. Are these ancient feasts just dusty relics of history? Things for us to study in a book? Or, as the source argues, are they a living blueprint, a kind of prophetic calendar whose most important dates might still be in our future? It's definitely a powerful thought to chew on. Thanks for watching.